Earlier this week, we talked about Jimbo Fisher's strategically timed announcement that he wants to coach again, and it's working. The rumors are already flying, and according to one story, Michigan State is ground zero. We're going to weed out the fact from the fiction. Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer. I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hit that free subscribe button down below. That way you'll never miss a single episode. Plus, it helps us out. Also, share, like, and follow as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. So, Jimbo, a Spartan. We've got the latest news around the league, recruiting news as well, plus our Big Ten classics. Hang around for the end for that. 2 days ago, we did a podcast right here on Locked On Big Ten featuring former Florida State and Texas A&M coach Jimbo Fisher and how he announced to everybody that he wants to return to the sidelines. He's bored. Got all that buyout money. He wants to get back on the sidelines. And look, he's only 59 years old. Naturally, we speculated about whether any Big Ten teams would be a fit for him if he were to come back and unretire or whatever it is right now. Should there be any coaching changes in the Big Ten at the end of the upcoming season? Keep in mind, our policy here on Locked On Big Ten, we root for everybody to succeed. We never call for anybody to lose a job, but it happens. And that's what we have to speculate about from time to time. We did point out how Jimbo's timing of this announcement was very strategic. This was not an accident. We talk about how he was planting a seed in the minds of athletic directors, fans, and boosters, fan bases everywhere. And look, we're still in the quiet of the preseason right now, but plant the seed now. And then if things start to go south midway through the season with any prominent programs, the rumor mills start spinning and his name will come up as a possible replacement somewhere or everywhere. The plan's already working. Saturday Down South listed a couple of destinations, possible destinations for Jimbo. And look, we did the same thing. A lot of people did it. It's only natural. He announces he's coming back. Oh, where would be a good fit? We did that show 2 days ago. But Saturdays Down South gave their list. And number one on the Jimbo Fisher list, Michigan State. Michigan State. At first glance, I thought that was a little bit crazy. Jonathan Smith just got there. He's only coached one season. He's barely had time to get his feet wet. And look, I think they've done a better than fair job recruiting and trying to get things turned around there. And I never thought it was a one-year fix following the Mel Tucker mess. So look, last year, this year, and then boom, probably results next year. But then I got to thinking just a little bit. Michigan State does not like remaining in the shadow of that other school nearby in Ann Arbor. And we reported after the Mel Tucker firing that there were conversations with Urban Meyer. They were talking. It obviously never panned out. And the fact that they talked to Urban means the school is serious about taking that next step and wanting to be the number one team in the state, let alone the Big Ten, and get into the college football playoffs. So I'm not ever sure what became of those talks with Urban or how they parted ways or whatever, other than the fact that I don't think Urban was really serious about getting back in the game, even for a bunch of money. I just think he likes to be courted, feel important, and I think that's all there was to that as I look back on it. But hey, if Michigan State was good enough for Nick Saban once upon a time, hey, why not go after big game coaches, right? And look, Jimbo Fisher is a big game, big name head coach with a national championship. Got that on his resume. And coaching at some pretty big-time schools like Florida State and Texas A&M. At A&M, his record was 20 games above 500, even though that wasn't good enough for them. He reminded everybody this past weekend that, oh, by the way, he's won 72% of his games. He's healthy. He's only 59, and he's ready to get back to work. He laid his resume out there just to refresh people's memories. So, what about Michigan State from a financial standpoint? Look, there was the big buyout with the Mel Tucker situation, but that's on pause because of the wrongful termination lawsuit going on between both parties. That, in the end, could cost the school a big chunk of change. So, would they pay to buy out Jonathan Smith this upcoming season if it turns out to be subpar? Well, that's where things, I think, get interesting. It turns out that Smith's buyout is pretty light. Maybe they put this lingo in there following the Mel Tucker and the size of his contract. I don't know. It's only $3 million right now. And December 2nd, it drops to $2 million. That's pocket change for these athletic departments and in the world of coaching these days. $2 million? It's nothing. Given Jimbo's past contracts, I wonder, would he accept less to get back into the game? Or will he have multiple offers driving up his price? Look, his $95 million contract at Texas A&M, it was eye-popping at the time. It reset the entire coaching market and, in fact, probably helped Mel Tucker get his enormous 10-year, $95 million figure in the contract that Michigan State seemed to have buyer's remorse almost the minute the ink dried on that deal. And plus, if Michigan State was willing to spend that much on Tucker a few years ago, I think Jimbo would expect as much here in the very near future, if it all played out this way. Look, here's the deal, the bottom line, if you will. I think Jimbo's a good coach. I think he's a big name coach, and I think wherever he goes, he would be successful. Is he worth turning on Jonathan Smith right now? That I don't think so. I don't think so. Like, the Spartans are coming off a 5-7 year, and I'll admit, look, the 5 wins, they were Florida Atlantic, they were Maryland, Prairie View, Iowa, and Purdue. All right. They weren't the greatest of quality wins. They were 5 wins, 5-7. They did get blown out by Rutgers on the season finale. They played a 1-score game at Michigan and at Boston College. All right. They were in the mix a little bit. And this year, I think quarterback Aiden Childs is going to take that next step forward. He's a tremendous athlete. If he can get it dialed in year 2, I think the program is going in the right direction. Now, even if it's a bit slow, like baby steps. And you look at this year's schedule, and Michigan State opens up against Western Michigan on August 29th. Boston College, they play there last year. Now they're going to play at Michigan State this year for the home and home. Road games, they got some tough ones. They got some toughies on the schedule. They're at USC, Nebraska, Indiana, and Iowa. And then, oh, by the way, there's Michigan and Penn State on the schedule. I guess the good news is both of those are home games for Michigan State. So in the long run, as we're looking at this season from the 30,000 feet view of this thing, the truth is that the Spartans could be in a category that they could be a really improved team in year 2 and still maybe end up with the same 5-7 record as last year. But you wouldn't notice in the win total, but they could be a much better football team. The question for the administrators are, what's next? Are they going to keep going? Look at what Jonathan Smith's been able to recruit and let him keep building. In the meantime, Jimbo Fisher's going to be waiting in the wings. Hit me up, Spartans fans. I'd love to hear your opinion on this. You guys always jump out with the comments, whether we're talking about Michigan State in relation to Michigan or Michigan State and Mel Tucker. You guys always hit me up with the comments. Follow up here. What do we do? Michigan State. How do you look at your football program? Year 2, Jonathan Smith. Year 3 with Jonathan Smith next year, or Jimbo Fisher? Hit me up in the comments section. Be sure to hit that free subscribe button, and you'll never miss a single episode. Don't forget to share, follow it, like Locked On Big Ten. If you're a Big Ten fan, I know you know others. Share. Hit that little share arrow and send us their way. We're here every single day. Don't forget, we got a website, Talk Big Ten with the number 10, talkbig10.com. All of our podcasts go there, and there are links for you to buy your favorite school merchandise. Some Michigan State shirts, hats, T-shirts, pennants, all that right there. Talkbig10.com. Plenty of recruiting news to get to, plus more talk about the Michigan offensive line. We talked about a freshman yesterday. We're going to figure out what's going on with that O-line. It's pretty promising. We have a 5'9" freshman wide receiver at Indiana. That could be a big factor. Dan Lanning updates everybody on injuries and suspensions at Oregon. So we got a lot of news to get to, and then we'll have our Big Ten Classics heading into the weekend on the Big Ten Network. It's all coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. FanDuel. Mark your calendar. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day. It's a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. I know you're thinking things over about how the season's going to go. For just 24 hours, FanDuel will be giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP shot, eyeing a long shot division winner, ready to crown your Super Bowl champ right now before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Jump on this. Pick your MVP. Pick who you think's going to win the Super Bowl. I'll tell you somewhere to look. You want to look at a little futures. Defensive Player of the Year and Comeback Player of the Year. Aiden Hutchinson, Detroit Lions. I hear he's looking great coming off that leg injury. Parlay those together. Have some fun. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is just one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Thanks for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers out there. Thank you. Meanwhile, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. It really helps us out. You'll never miss an episode. And share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten. We'd really appreciate that as well. We also have a website, talkbig10.com. All right, so let me start things off. I'm going to stay with Michigan State for a moment since we talked about them in the opening segment. You know, Jonathan Smith got a nice commit back in June from 4-star wide receiver Tyron Wortham. He had previously committed to UCF, Central Florida, flipped to Michigan State. Apparently, he really liked his visit to East Lansing so much that he flipped on the spot. Michigan State was very excited. It was a big surprise for everybody because he's from Sarasota. Maybe thought he'd stay in Florida. Not the case. And, of course, that's SEC country, and Auburn and Georgia are still trying to flip him back to the South. So keep an eye on him. This one may go down to signing day in December, if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly on that situation. Speaking of wide receivers, the best one is Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State. That's pretty unanimous. And certainly the Buckeyes offensive coordinator, Brian Hartline, who's been the wide receivers coach there since 2018, he doesn't need a lot of help recruiting. He's doing just fine. He's the reason that Ohio State is known as wide receiver U. Getting a lot of great kids that all end up in the NFL. Well, Jeremiah Smith is helping out as well. Recently, top 20 class of 2027 wide receiver and the number 2 receiver ranked nationally, 5-star Monshun Sales. He was in for a visit, and Smith jumped in to help recruit him, hung out with him, all that kind of good stuff. This kid's 6'5", with elite speed. He's from Indianapolis. We've talked about him before. He's from Lawrence North, same school as Greg Oden, you Ohio State fans. So he's from Indy, and he's going to be attending the Buckeyes season opener against Texas and kind of check things out a little bit. As for the Buckeyes class of 2026 recruits, 5-star offensive lineman Darius Gray, 6'3", 285-pound from Virginia. He's the number 1 interior lineman in Virginia. He's down to Ohio State, Clemson, LSU, South Carolina, and Tennessee. We talked about him on numerous podcasts in the past because the Buckeyes have had him circled for a long time, and he's going to make his announcement next week, August 22nd. And by the way, it's going to be carried live on CBS Sports College Football Channel. So, Buckeye fans, keep your fingers crossed. Check them out for that. So the Buckeyes, we were talking about their wide receivers just a moment ago. You know, they're not the only team with great wide receivers. And I have frequently mentioned on this very podcast that Indiana's Elijah Surratt is probably the best wide receiver in the Big Ten, not named Jeremiah Smith. And in fact, Indiana's wide receiver room is pretty good and underrated. They got 5 veterans that play wide receiver in the receiver room. 5 of them that have at least 2 full college football seasons under their belt. And they got 3 freshmen in there trying to crack the Hoosiers lineup as well. One in particular is turning heads. His name is LeBron Bond. He's just 5'9", and he caught 4 passes and a touchdown in the spring game. And he's one of the fastest players on the team, just a little dynamo out there. And even head coach Kurt Signetti, who's not quick to give out a lot of compliments, says this kid's in a position to help the team right away in the fall as a freshman. So keep an eye on him. LeBron Bond. Should be a pretty easy name to remember. Yesterday, we talked about the Michigan offensive line and whether a freshman may start this year. That would be pretty unique. In fact, there are 2 exciting freshmen that are battling for gigs there with Sharon Moore. But Moore says that he's starting to see some separation now from guys competing for spots on the offensive line. A lot of open competition here. But he did say he's got one surefire starter, and that's their left guard, Giovanni El Hadi. And also a couple other guys probably set, but getting pushed a little bit. Right tackle Andrew Sprague. He looks like he could be a starter, as does center and 5th-year player Greg Crippen. But again, both are being pushed by some strong competition. So the Michigan offensive line looks like it's like 9 or 10 deep. What do you expect at Michigan? Offensive line, right? So about the Ducks for a minute. Yesterday, we reported Oregon Ducks wide receiver Jurion Dickey has been suspended. And Dan Lanning addressed the media and talked about it briefly because he was asked about it. He didn't say a lot other than the suspension is indefinite. He said he's got 2 team rules. Be respectful and be on time. That's it. So you do the math on what happened there. We reported yesterday he was getting in arguments with players and coaches. So I don't know about the respectful part. Maybe that was it. I don't know about his timeliness. Didn't say anything about that. But Lanning says, look, he wants to see the kid succeed, whether it's at Oregon or somewhere else. He's had 2 catches in 2 years, so hasn't really been a big impact yet. Lanning also addressed the leg injury to defensive back Trey McNutt, who broke his leg. It did require surgery. However, there is a bright spot. He might even be able to come back at some point before the season's over. Maybe sooner than later was what they were talking about. So I don't know. Oregon fans, keep your fingers crossed on that. And also, because of that injury, maybe more pressure on junior safety Dylan Thieneman, who transferred from Purdue to Oregon. Now, I think this kid's great. We have raved about him on this podcast. And, Lanning's like, all right, Thieneman, next man up. I was predicting he's going to be a starter anyway. We've talked about him, how when he was at Purdue, he was the freshman of the year. In fact, I've said numerous times on this podcast, I think he is like the transfer portal get of the year for the entire Big Ten. Freshman year at Purdue 2 years ago, true freshman, 6 interceptions. And for the past 2 years, being the leading tackler there for the Boilermakers. So he's going to be just fine for the Ducks. They're going to love this kid. You Duck fans, you're going to love him. Absolutely. All right. Coming up, we're going to get you ready for the weekend with our Big Ten Classics. If you don't know what that is, we're not affiliated with the Big Ten Network. We just like the same stuff, right? Big Ten. And we always, on Thursdays, look ahead to their programming over the weekend with Big Ten Classics. Have some fun with some matchups on yesteryear. And I'll also add to it, they're playing and replaying a lot of their camp visits. Big Ten Network does a pretty good job of they go to all 18 teams, talk to coaches and players, show a few highlights, not a lot. They're not allowed to show too much. So then they sit there and analyze it and talk about it. They go to all the campuses. I'll tell you when your school is going to air this weekend. They've been doing it for a couple of weeks, so some of these are repeats. They got a couple new ones coming up out on the West Coast. I'll tell you what those are. As part of our features that we do at the end of the podcast each and every day, it makes us unique from everybody else. Mondays, we do our top 10 Big Ten observations for the weekend. Tuesday, tweets. Wednesdays, we power rank stuff. Thursdays, we do the Big Ten Classics. And then on Fridays, we do Pigskin Picks or some kind of pick'em show. So all that still coming up. We'll take a look at Big Ten Classics. That is next right here on Locked On Big Ten. Let me tell you about Wayfair. My wife and I have shopped there numerous times. As summer winds down, there's something nice about getting back into the routine that you like, and Wayfair makes it easy to set yourself up for the season ahead, from bedding to linens to storage solutions to every room. They're your one-stop shop to refresh your home. I think they're great for outdoor patio stuff, maybe something a little corner piece, nooks, crannies, all that kind of stuff. They've got it all. Anything you can imagine, they have it at Wayfair. Just a lot of great stuff. The delivery is fast and free. Even if it's something big, it's fast and free. And it's all very convenient. Just boom, order it, and then it shows up. The price fits your budget every time. And it's a perfect way to get your home ready for whatever, the next season, a little fall feel for autumn, winter around the corner, the holidays, upgrading your workspace, that little nook table in the corner you just need to make everything perfect, that kind of stuff. It's a lot. It makes everything easier if you get it right there. Get yourself organized, refreshed, and back to routine for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's Wayfair, WAYFAIR.com, wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. All right. On Locked On Big Ten, we always close out with some features. Today, we're going to look at the Big Ten Network and their Big Ten Classics coming up this weekend, plus some training camp highlights. They do a pretty good job of that, so we'll just share that with you. If you're on audio, we'll go full screen. It's just a list of times, dates, all Eastern times. We'll pick it up with some Friday action, Friday, August 15th, and they start up at 4 o'clock Eastern, a Ohio State football classic from 2016, taking on Michigan at Ohio State 2016. This is, they set a then record at Ohio Stadium, 110,045 people. Curtis Samuel's 15-yard run in double overtime, giving the Buckeyes, the number 2 ranked Buckeyes, a 30-27 walk-off win over number 3 Michigan. Number 2 versus number 3. That was about as big as it gets. Then at 9 o'clock on Friday, you got a football training camp from Oregon. They're going to debut Oregon, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. Get home from work Friday, you Oregon Duck fans. You can see their report on the Big Ten Network regarding the Oregon Ducks. Then on Saturday, the 16th, we'll pick it up at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific, an Iowa football classic, Nebraska at Iowa. This is from just last November. Drew Stevens kicking the game-winning field goal as time expired to lift the Hawkeyes to a 13-10 win over the Cornhuskers. At 10 o'clock, they'll follow it by the replay of their football training camp show at Iowa's camp. A lot from Kirk Ferentz, Tim Lester and company, their new quarterback. They'll check it all out right there. Iowa training camp at 10 o'clock Eastern. At 3 p.m. Eastern Saturday, they'll show an Oregon football classic, Washington versus Oregon from last year, 2024. Dylan Gabriel passing for 2 touchdowns, running for another score for the top-ranked Ducks in their 49-21 victory over the Huskies. And then I'll flip the screen here for the much of the rest of the day. And they're just going to re-air a lot of these training camps that they've been doing. They'll replay the Oregon one at 4. If you missed Brett Bielema and the Illinois camp, that's at 5 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Northwestern's camp at 6 o'clock. You can catch Kurt Signetti and the Indiana camp. Remember, we just talked about LeBron Bond. We'll see if they talk about them in that special. That's at 7 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, an Iowa training camp. And then Penn State. That was from a couple of weeks ago. If you want to see that with James Franklin and company, that re-airs at 10 o'clock. And then 11 o'clock at night Eastern, Luke Fickell and the Wisconsin Badgers. Now, on to Sunday. We'll pick it up here, 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific, a Washington football classic, Michigan at Washington. This is from this past year where Will Rogers threw for 271 yards and 2 touchdowns to help the Huskies defeat the 10th-ranked Wolverines 27-17. And then the debut of the Washington camp feature that will air on the Big Ten Network. We haven't seen this yet, so this is the first airing, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific, on the Big Ten Network. the camp at Washington. And then they'll go with a football in 60 where they play just snap to snap, all the edits right at the snap, a 60-minute time capsule of the USC and Washington game from this past November. That's the one where Jonah Coleman rushed for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the Huskies won 26-21 over the Trojans. So there you have it, our Big Ten Classics. Pretty soon we'll start adding some live kickoff games, so some actual games. That'll be pretty exciting to our schedules going into the weekend. And then we'll also have actual games to look at actual point spreads for a Pigskin Pick segment that we do on Fridays. We'll come up with something for you tomorrow special, something futures, like we just talked about with FanDuel just a little while ago. In the meantime, if you're a Big Ten fan, I know you know other Big Ten fans. Let them know we're out here every single day. All 18 teams, news on all of them, analysis of that news, and opinion of that news. We're not afraid to give our opinion here. Neither are you. You hit me up in the comments all the time, and we always appreciate that. Go back and check out for a second listen yesterday's podcast if you missed it, or the day before. I'll also ask you to check out Brian Smith and the Portal Show. He's on the Locked On Family as well on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. You can check that out as well. As always, I appreciate you guys for being with us, and we'll close out another week. And then we're another week closer to the start of the actual football season with actual games to talk about. That will be fantastic. Can't wait for all that. For Locked On Big Ten, I'm Craig Sheeman. I'll talk to you next time.